everybody. It's the Blizzard King. I love you guys. I'll talk to y'all later.
Well, I be damn. Look who done come up in here.
Hey, it's Kunta Kinte and Ebola.
Famine and blood diamond.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the broadcast. This is Dennis Spurling. Well, we are in the midst of the government shutdown. We're past the 30th day. And as of November 1st, there are a lot of people who are not receiving their economic benefits, their set-asides, their EBT specifically. So those EBT cards are coming up short. People are trying to figure out a way to get through this month and the upcoming holiday season. As it is right now, the Republicans are not giving any ground. The Democrats insist upon trying to push their policies through, which apparently includes some sort of set-aside or the funding of health insurance for illegal aliens, and the Republicans are not having any part of that. The other thing is that this is what a lot of people voted for. They don't want illegals to be funded by the American taxpayer, whether we're talking about EBT, whether we're talking about Section 8, whatever set-asides. They don't want immigrants receiving any benefit of that. And there are some people who don't want to see black people reap any benefit from government set-asides, even though black people pay into the economy to the tune of over $1 trillion a year, and we're taxpayers. Now, you have to ask yourself, why would people want to see all this chaos? And I want to try to lay something out for you, and I want you to understand. And I'm specifically talking to the black men and black women who don't understand why there are black men on the internet who want to see chaos. And of course there are some black women too, because, you know, they harbor these traits too, but largely black men, or men in general, you know, but specifically the brothers are like, yeah, I'm glad these folks are not going to be able to feed their children. I'm glad they're cutting them off the EBT. Some men are even mentioning the fact that, you know, women will have to come begging and pleading, and you know, and they're looking for the carnage. And the thing about that is that you have to understand that some men they want chaos. A lot of people wanted Trump to win because he would bring chaos. A lot of men want to see the destruction. Now, they may not be able to do it themselves, but, you know, Trump is acting as an agent of chaos, and some men enjoy it. Now, of course, there are other people who voted. Some people just vote straight Republican because they like what the Republicans bring to the table as far as policy. Typically, it's smaller government, lower taxes, good for business, et cetera, et cetera. And I can understand that. But then there's a percentage of men who are vocal, and they want to see other people suffer. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, why is that? Why is it? Why is it that they want to see other people suffer? What benefit do they get from the chaos caused by people who are now unable to feed themselves? And as my understanding, this is over 40 million. We're not just talking about women and children. We're also talking about elderly. We're also talking about people who are mentally and physically challenged. But nevertheless, there are people who are 100% in support of the chaos. And largely it's because they don't see the system as having worked for them. They don't see the benefit that they think that they were entitled to. They don't see the promise that they feel they're owed. They're not satisfied with their life. When we talk about white men and black men and other men who are in this country, there's differences. If I was to speak about white men, I would say, well, that white woman of theirs has been empowered. She has more education now than she ever did. She has more rights, right to reproduction, right to determine whether or not she reproduces or not, even after she's pregnant, well on her way to giving birth. She does not necessarily need the white man anymore for his provision and protection because the government subsidizes her from birth. Through education, you have an educational system that's geared towards, well, let me say it like this, it is more woman-friendly than it ever has been, and unfortunately men are not finding that same reward, if you will, when it comes to education. And so you have a drop in male enrollment amongst white men. You have a drop in earning capacity. In fact, women are now reaching to the point where they make as much or more money than men, and they proudly announce it. The family court system seems to be against men, specifically white men, who invented these institutions, by the way, and they're not happy about it. So what you see them doing is stripping away women's rights. But as far as welfare and EBT, it gets rid of that safety net that women otherwise would have had if they decided to leave their husbands or separate themselves from the men in their life. And so because of that, the men don't like it. And I'm talking specifically about white men. This is why they're angry. Now, I would think that the reasoning is misplaced, considering that white men largely dominate this country and all the levers of power they control. Vast majority of the Fortune 500 companies, CEOs and chairmen, white men, white women, of course. Positions in both houses of Congress, the presidency, I think we had one, some say 1.5, out of, all of the 47 different presidents elected, not counting Trump, because he's really 45 twice. But that's why a lot of white men want to see this country. They want to see things turn upside down. And then you have black men, a group of men who have been basically pummeled by the media, who've been largely disrespected by black women and black society in general, and left to play only certain roles. Either you can be you're only praised if you're a simp. And I'm just telling you how the brothers feel. I'm just telling you how they feel. You don't have to like what I'm saying, but this is how they feel. And they feel as though they've been removed as fathers. They've been treated poorly by black women. They're not the heads of the households. They're not the heads of the community. No matter what they do, they're still made to feel as though they're at fault for all the ills of the black community, even if they didn't do anything. So at this point, they want to see chaos. They want to see black women and their children suffer. Now, that might be hard for you to conceptualize. And yeah, some men are just in it because they want to see how, I can take advantage of these women. And that is predatory in nature. Okay, the fact that now she is needy and in need of food and shelter and basic accommodations. So now you have some poor woman who's even worse off than she was before, because EBT is not making anybody rich. Section 8 is not making anybody rich. In fact, it's a trap. So you have a bunch of poor women who are needy, and there are a lot of men who will prey on them. But then there are other men who don't want to have anything to do with black women or their children. Rather, they just want to see them suffer. They want to see them suffer as payback for being what they perceived as being mistreated. Payback for the disrespect. Payback for being maligned. Payback for being separated from their children. Payback for all the mean things that black women have said over the past several generations about black men. They want to see them suffer. And a lot of people might find that difficult to understand. Well, what's in it? You might be asking yourself, well, what's in it for them if black women suffer? I mean, why would they want to? How horrible. How horrible. And this is how folks, you can't even conceptualize the fact that they just want to see women suffer. They don't mind children starving. No, not at all. And, you know, they're here for the chaos. Even watching families get snatched up off the street by ICE. They're here for the chaos. A lot of these men may not have voted. They may not have voted for Donald Trump. They may have voted for Kamala Harris. But at this particular point, they're enjoying the shit show. They're here for the chaos. And that's why a lot of men aren't out in the streets protesting. A lot of men aren't. They're taking online saying, see, we told you so. This is what you get. They're enjoying the show. And some of you women are saying, oh, that's just heartless. And I would challenge you and say, no, that is just the nature of man. Some men are builders. Some men are born to destroy. Some men are not motivated by money. Some men just want to see the world burn. As a famous Heath Ledger in the Joker, Batman movie that came out several years ago. Some men just want to see the world burn. And that's extremely hard for women who are outside the male psyche to understand. It's even hard for some men to understand. But when you have a lot of men who are dissatisfied and who are upset and they don't believe that the world is giving them what they want to destroy the world so everybody suffers. And I would challenge you that black men feel that way. See, nobody has suffered more than black men in the United States of America consistently over the past 400 years. We've been stripped of our masculinity. We've been stripped of our heritage, our name. We've been used as mules to fight wars, to build this country. We've been used as entertainers. We've been manipulated. We've been incarcerated. And we get little to no respect. That's the vast majority of black men. And no matter what you do, there's no escape. No matter what you do, you can't get away from being a black male. They've told us all throughout the 90s we're an endangered species. Year after year after year, we have to watch black men get shot down by other black men who don't respect them. So we don't respect each other. Then we have to watch on a regular basis black men be unalived by police officers and nothing happens to them. We have to constantly be told that we're not good enough when compared to white men and Asian men and Latino men who make far less money than we do. But we still, no matter what the criteria is, whenever we achieve a goal, then, you know, the goal is then moved. You can be the president of the United States and your wife can have a podcast on a regular basis telling people that you're inadequate as a man or she was a single mother. You can be a NBA All-Star destined for the Hall of Fame, and you can have a wife who gets on the television, podcast, or whatever media outlet available and tells the world how, you know, you're inadequate and she only married you because her parents basically persuaded her to. But nevertheless, you're not good enough. Whether you are the most involved fathers in America of all the other groups or not, you're still considered a deadbeat dad. You're never good enough. And so for some men who look at that, they'll say, you know, what's the point of me trying to elevate in this particular system? What is the point of me trying to lift myself up and be the best I can be if I will still be treated like a Pookie or a Ray Ray. And the only reason you don't have a Michael Jordan didn't get treated like a Pookie from the ghetto, living in the projects, sleeping on his baby mama's couch, is because he has money. But other than that, he's still considered a deadbeat, a loser. All the other negative stereotypes associated with black and maleness. Brother Malcolm X said that none of us will rise unless, I believe the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this, none of our people will rise unless the lowest of our people is brought up. We can never rise any higher than the lowest of our people. So if the lowest of black male is still just a dirty, deadbeat, drug addict, low-down N-word, then it doesn't matter if you're Barack Obama or, you know, a Pookie and Ray Ray. You're perceived as the same. And so a lot of men have realized that. A lot of black men have realized that. So they say, you know, this system doesn't work for me. No matter how hard I try, it's still going to try to tear me down and disparage my name. So you know what? Let's just destroy the system and let it burn. And for them, you know, a lot of black men look at how black women treat them, starting with their mothers, and you know, that treachery that black men perceive that they have had to deal with at the hands of black women is part of the problem. And so, you know, if she suffers and her children suffers, oh well. And I'm trying to explain to you all that, you know, trying to understand this from the perspective of a man who does not seek chaos, or a woman who seeks to try to preserve life and survive. You don't understand. I can't. It's not. You have to understand the nature of men. And in order to understand the nature of men, you have to be a man. But men understand that. That's why invariably we're wired for protection. Invariably, we know there are other men out there who don't necessarily want your life. They just want to destroy your life. They don't necessarily want your woman. They just want to pilferage and plunder. So you have to always be able to protect your women and your children and your property and whatever in your life and whatever you hold value, because this is the nature of other men. Good men, as we call them, and I use the term good loosely, because at some point a good man can do bad things and a bad man can do good things. So what is he, good or bad? Or is there just a gray area? A good man is not just some simp who provides and doesn't give any pushback. A good man is a lot of things, depending on the situation. Nevertheless, a good man, for lack of a better word, understands that he has to protect himself and his values and those that are in his care and trust from bad men. And so that's why he has to stay armed. That's why he has to be willing to protect himself. That's why he has to be willing to use lethal force. And so, even by nature, you understand that there are chaotic men out there who will seek to destroy what you've built. And all you see that happening right now is that manifesting in the minds and psyches of a lot of men who literally want to see black women suffer. There are a lot of white men who literally want to see white women suffer and go into poverty and sleep in their cars and not be able to have baby deletions for children that they don't want and can't afford. They want to see them suffer. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last time that the society is shaken up. We can go back to Rome. The so-called barbarians were at the gate. They didn't benefit from the Roman society. They were forced to dig the trenches. They were forced to fight the wars. They were enslaved. So they rallied, they came back, and they destroyed Rome. They wanted to see it burn. They burned the books. They burned everything. You know, same thing with Temujin. Some of you all don't know his name is Genghis Khan. You all call him Genghis Khan, but Temujin just ravaged the Asian steppes, East Asia, and literally unalived millions and millions of people and raped enough women so that a small percentage of Asians, I think 3 to 4% of Asian people have his DNA. I'm talking about Genghis Khan, who you all, everybody knows him as Temujin. The man clearly craved destruction, so this is not new. There are stories written about, the classics are written about men who just crave chaos. They like destruction for the point of destruction. They will find any reason to become angry enough to pick up arms and destroy. This is the nature of man. This is man. Now here we are looking at it on the micro level, and you have these men wanting to see the black community and the women in it destroyed, and not all, of course, but the ones they deem unworthy, the ones who are, you know, receiving EBT benefits and etc. Or the ones even that lost their jobs. The 300,000 so black women who are employed by the federal government, who are no longer employed because Donald Trump came in and just relieved them of their duties. They're happy about that. Why are you even happy about that? Why could you? Because they want to see the chaos. They want to see them struggle. They want to see them suffer. Again, the system did not work for them. And they want to see it destroyed. They want to see it upended. So for them, Donald Trump is an agent of chaos. And he's coming in and he's bringing the hammer and he's destroying the systems that they feel don't benefit them. Most black men don't benefit from EBT. Most black men don't benefit from Section 8. Matter of fact, most black men were excluded from welfare in general. But what that does is it empowers black women. Even these little crumbs. She's got a few crumbs. You have nothing. Now she is in a position where she doesn't have to hear or ask you for anything, even as to how your children should be raised or where they should be raised, what they should eat even. And so a lot of men are tired of that. So they don't want to strip these black women of their power. And if it comes after a chaotic situation where you have people in the streets and suffering and unable to eat, oh well, so be it. Doesn't work. These men are already ready to crash out, if I can use a colloquial statement. And some other ones are dejected. Again, they don't feel the system benefits them, and it never will, so why would they care? This system benefits you in their mind. And so if the system is upended, then fine. And that's pretty much where we are. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, well, let me say it like this. As it is right now, this chaos that we're dealing with, that we see, it has some figureheads, it has some mouthpieces. And one of the main individuals that I see is a young man, Nick Fuentes. Now, it's my understanding is that he is not what we would consider a Northern European Anglo-Saxon. He is not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Viking-esque Northern European white man. At best, he's Italian and Mexican, which means, on the scale of white racial purity, he's very, very, very low. Nevertheless, he's a mouthpiece. And I find this young man to be insincere. I see him as an opportunist. I see him as one of these people who flexed and realized that he had some moniker of power and that there were other people out there who would follow him. And so having been powerless his entire life, not just in stature, but also in voice, not coming from the best family situations, now he's had an opportunity to flex. And now the president knows his name, and the vice president knows his name, and the news media knows his name, and all the major social media outlets know his name. And he's considered the figurehead of an organization called Groypers. And whether it's racist or not, which I think is very racist, he's the figurehead. He's in charge of it. So there's some power in there. And for a person who's had no power his entire life, even the power and ability to be the disruptor is sufficient to him. Now, I said earlier, I think he's insincere. I think he's an opportunist. I think that at some point when he is able to use or parlay this situation into some financial success, his followers will realize this guy was just really in it for himself. He was in it for the money. I can see somebody like Nick Fuentes finding himself a big booty brown Latina and moving to a villa somewhere in Argentina. America first, be damned. Right? What happened to all that, Nick? Is Nicole Fuentes, right? Then we'll see all his last name. Nicole Fuentes Penosa de la Rosa Miguel Antoniqua, right? And all his little mixed brown children. Those are the type of opportunities that have typically showed up. They're able to secure the bag, so to speak. And then they go right off into the sunset, leaving behind them chaos. So I don't really, this one, Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated a couple of months ago, these people are all mouthpieces. I don't really believe them. They believe what they're saying at the time, but they're not truly dedicated. They are just reaping the benefits of speaking on behalf of people who are harboring these same sentiments about the system not working for them. And they're funneling it into racism and bigotry. Now, unless you've been under a rock, you notice that the specific brand of racism that these folks espouse to is loud and is vocal. Halloween just passed, and you had so many white women and white men dressed up in blackface. Now, that wouldn't have happened in the 1990s. It probably wouldn't have happened in the early 2000s because it was so offensive that people wouldn't air it. But now, racism is back alive and well like it's 1949 or 1950. You got a lot of black people who are comfortable with white people calling folk the N-word, and pretty soon, not only are you going to be N-words, but you're going to have white folks see, you didn't draw the line at the N-word. And there's a whole cascade of racial epithets that were pushed out of the public discourse around the 1970s because, you know, white folks said we can't do that anymore. It's not acceptable. But now all that's going to come back. You thought it was going to stop at the N-word. Well, if they can call you the N-word, why can't they call you a coon? Why can't they call you a spade, a jigaboo, a monkey? See, this is what happens when you open that Pandora's box. So all you cool kids with your white friends and your Mexican friends and your Latino friends, my generation didn't stand for it. We didn't let people outside the culture call us N-words. You all did. And so you open that Pandora's box. So for the next 40 or 50 years, be prepared to be addressed as coons and spades and monkeys and jigaboos, porch monkeys. White folks got all kind of racially derogatory names to call pretty much everybody. They even have names for themselves. They call Italians all sorts of racial epithets. They all have names for each other. Okay? Jewish people all of them have names for each other. And so, this is something that they do. But you all open the door for it. But I say all that to say, racism is open, it's out the closet, it's vocal, and it's become fashionable again. It's become acceptable. It's no different than, and see, when you let it become acceptable again, when it becomes part of the culture, it's hard to get rid of it. It's hard to get rid of it. Just like if you let crime become a cultural thing, it's very difficult to get rid of it at that point. And that's what we see happening right now in this culture. Now, the good thing about open racism, and there's not much good, and I'm using the term good with an asterisk. The good thing about open racism is that, number one, you know where people stand. That's good, because at least you know how to measure yourself with them. You don't necessarily have to like them or dislike them, but you understand where they're coming from, and so you can give them the birth of space that they need, and you can operate accordingly. The other thing is this, and I'll start by saying that the most important thing about white supremacy racism is that it has to be covert. It lasts longer when it's covert. When it becomes open and undeniable, then people begin to assess it, they begin to look at it, and they begin to digest it, and they examine it, and it's exposed to the sunlight. And what the sunlight does is it cures diseases. So in order for white supremacy racism to work at its best, it has to be covert, because when it becomes open, then it gathers opposition. When it becomes open, the people who are subject to white supremacy racism then begin to look at it and form opposition to it. And so now it's challenged openly. For years, for decades, white people, whether we're talking about people like Bill O'Reilly, and even some black people right now, is just as silly, say, oh, white supremacy racism doesn't exist. There's one gentleman, his name is Brandon Tatum, or Officer Tatum, I don't know. I think he's out of Arizona. He was a cop for a couple of years, turned podcaster, and he has this huge following online. And, he's a black man. And he largely made he built his YouTube following and his social media following saying the things that racist white people wanted to say but couldn't. So he basically was a racist white woman's avatar in blackface. That's basically who he was. Now recently, as racism has become open, they no longer need an avatar. They don't need an avatar anymore, so they can say it themselves. So, they don't need a middleman to speak for them. And so they've basically been calling this gentleman an Uncle Tom. He made the mistake of, I believe, siding with Israel in the Palestinian conflict between Israel and Hamas. And that mistake cost him dearly, because there are a lot of people on the racist right that he had formerly appeased to, or was trying to appease, and who helped him build his platform, they don't like that. Because again, white people are racist against other white people who are Jewish. And that's historical. I believe the Jewish people, they got 3,000 years of racism that they've dealt with. They were excuse my language, okay? YouTube, don't get angry, but I'm just talking. They were the niggers before black people were niggers. These folks have been kicked out of dozens and dozens of countries, okay? So they've had to deal with all sorts of racial cleansing and ostracization and all sorts of stuff. And I still don't truly understand what white people's problem is with, I don't get it, you know, and I hate to be I don't get it, you know, because to most black people, white people and Jewish people look pretty much the same to us. They just all look the same. But, you know, whatever. I don't want to get into that. But I do want to say that this Officer Tatum made the mistake of siding with Israel. And now he's feeling the repercussions of it. They call him a good boy. This big overswole black man. And, you know, this is what happens when you hop into bed with racism. But for years, he denied that racism exists. Racism doesn't exist, and now he's saying, oh, they're being racist against me because they're saying racist stuff. Yeah, duh. You know, duh. And that's why I tell you guys, you don't have to be a quote-unquote black person who is conservative and be a sycophant and be a kiss-ass and be blind to the fact that racism clearly exists because it does, and now we see it happening and it's manifesting. And it's outright and it's open. And unfortunately, these avatars, your Candace Owens, your Andrew Tate, Officer Tatum, I believe that's his name, and some of these other folks who are online, too numerous to name. You guys have acted as the black avatars for white supremacy, and now you're no longer needed. Now you'll be discarded. Now you'll be pushed off to the side because they can do it themselves. But here's the thing. Now that that black mask is removed, then the rest of the world and all the people and white people who are totally against that sort of rhetoric and want to go on and live in this world and be part of the human family, we're all going to see it for what it is. And none of us are going to like it, those of us who are against that. And now there's going to be opposition. So now there's a clear, bright line between who's the bigots, who are the racists, and who are the people who don't want to proceed in that direction. And that's the benefit of having it outright like this. It's no longer something you can deny. You'd be an idiot to deny that racism doesn't exist, that white supremacy doesn't exist, when you clearly have folks saying that this is a white man's country. We want all you darks, all you browns to leave. You know, the whole thing of fresh and fit. You got this Arab East African who's acting as an avatar for white supremacy racism. And, you know, he's getting his comeuppance. You know, and this guy is not even, you know, he's not even an American that has been in this country for generation upon generation. It's my understanding he's a first generation African immigrant. And I believe his name, he calls himself Myron Gaines, but I think that's his Americanized name. But the bottom line is these people, they come in here, they exploit the racial differences between black Americans and white Americans. They act as avatars for the far right leaning bigots and racists. They generate a few dollars, a little popularity, and then we're left as Americans to have to clean up the mess. And that's unfortunate because you got these people who come in from overseas, who come in with their different ideologies and their different cultures. They see an opportunity to make money here in the United States, and they exploit it. There's no difference between what someone like Myron Gaines and this lady that they call Brick Lady, Rhoda Osmond did. I believe it's her last name, Rhoda, I forget, I can't. But nevertheless, the brick lady, you guys may remember back in 2023, she alleged that a black man hit her with a brick. And in doing so, and for you all who are not aware, there's this common consensus, although misleading, that black men don't protect black women. And when they're talking about black women, they're referring to foundational black American women, which are women of African descent who can trace their roots back to prior to 1860, slave plantations, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a clear difference between the foundational black American women who have roots that go back 200, 300 years and a new African immigrant like Rhoda Osmond. Well, nevertheless, she recognized that there's this rift. She came in. She said a black man hit her. Apparently, she was in some sort of conflict, and it's my understanding, based on the police reports, that she tried to assault a man, and he defended himself. And so, because she didn't win that altercation, in other words, she tried to hit him. Apparently, there was something in her hand. He then hit her back with something in his hand, apparently a water bottle, and then she proceeded to enter onto the internet, go live, and talk about how none of these black men are defending her from a fight that she started. In other words, she wanted those black men to come in and fight this man who she tried to hit first. And the brother happens to be a black man from the United States, and I'm basing that solely on his last name. So this African immigrant woman from Somalia picked a fight with a black man from America. She tried to hit him. He hit her. And then she got mad because she lost the fight, or she probably didn't expect him to hit her back. And no other black men would jump in to save her, those who saw it, because she started. Nevertheless, she hopped on the internet and said, black men aren't protecting me. Black men aren't protecting black women. And in doing so, she exploited a rift between black people, foundational black Americans, and it caused just a cascade of issues. But this is the same thing these foreigners are doing. They're coming in here, they're causing trouble. They're coming in here, they're exploiting differences, whether they be race or sex or whatever. And if I can go back, that particular incident, it's not that Rhoda wanted black men to protect her. She basically wanted black men to come in and be her enforcers. It's the same thing that a lot of black women do when they call the police on black men. She loses an argument. She doesn't want to do something that he wants her to do, like get out of his house. She picks a fight, and then she calls the police on him. That's called blue leashing. Blue leashing. Somebody type hashtag blue leashing in the chat room. That's what that's called. But nevertheless, we have a culture here in the United States. Americans have a culture. We have a culture. White people, black people, and the Latinos who've been here for generation after generation, the Tejanos and the Chicanos, we have a culture. The Asians who've been here. Some have relatives, Chinese that helped build the railroad tracks. The Japanese that have been here have relatives in internment camps. The Native Americans we have a culture here. And when we start bringing in people from overseas, they began to create issues. Because let me explain something to you. A lot of these people, just because they're your color, does not mean you share the same culture. There's a gentleman right now down in Miami, and what he does is, and this guy's from Poland somewhere, foreign white man, he goes around Miami, South Miami, interviewing people, asking mostly black people racially charged questions, and he takes the answer and he posts them up on the internet to push forward a narrative of ignorance and violence, et cetera, et cetera. And again, this man is a white man from Poland. He needs to go back to Poland with that. We have enough problems here in the United States without these outside agitators coming to our country causing problems. This is not a black country. It's not a white country. It's not a Latino country. This is a country for Americans. This is not an Asian country. When the white man got here, there were already brown people here. At no point was America a white ethno-state. And it's not one now, because as soon as they got here, they start importing Africans. And after the Africans, they start importing Asians from China. And then they start bringing up more black people from the Caribbean, and then Latinos to come help to do the work that needed to be done in this country. At no point will America be a white country. At no point was it ever a white country, irrespective of the delusion of the so-called founding fathers. Many of them had fathered children from women who weren't white, because that was all that was available. Women died young at childbirth. And so as a practical matter, you have a lot of so-called white people who have mixed heritage. Now, they may never admit it, but if the typical white American who's been in this country for any number of several generations, he or she will have Latino, or what we call indigenous, African, or Asian DNA, somewhere 8%. I think the typical white person has about 8% sub-Saharan African DNA in this country. So, it's a delusion. But I say all that to say, overt racism is going to cause people to have to wake up and have to pick a side. And so when you have people like Nick Fuentes being overtly racist, setting up a racially charged environment, it's going to get some pushback. Now, it's not going to be pretty, it's not going to be easy, but it is what it is. Now, if I can tie all this together, you have people like Nick Fuentes, and you have people like, they use Donald Trump as an agent of chaos. Donald Trump and the whole group of people that support him, they see him as a sledgehammer in a china shop, and they want to see things destroyed because the system doesn't work for them. And as far as black men, brothers, I love you. I'm an advocate for black men. I have been an advocate for black men since 2010, when I began speaking on behalf of black men, using, at that point, my social media page, Facebook. And then at a certain point around 2016, 2017, I migrated over to some other social media. And then by the time 2000 showed up, I made my way to YouTube. I'm an advocate for black men. Because of the racially charged climate that we live in right now, I broadened that advocacy to foundational black American people in general. But at my core, I'm still an advocate for black men. And what I may suggest to you all at this particular juncture is that we do not reap any benefit from watching black women suffer, even if they have to suffer because of their poor decisions in relying on the government, thinking that the government, the same government that legalized slavery and American apartheid in the form of Jim Crow and the mass incarceration system, and had a hand in flooding the black community with dope and dividing the black family. Even though they were foolish for believing the American government, they're still our family, literally and figuratively. Black women suffering, black children suffering, does nothing for us as a group of men. It might make you feel good to see them suffer, but as far as our public image, it does not do us any benefit. And it makes us look petty if we take to the internet and gloat in their pain and suffering. I asked you, brothers, several years ago, are you ready to step over the bodies? And many of you looking at me right now on this broadcast where I'm live, remember that conversation. Are you ready to step over the dead bodies? Not dead bodies, but are you ready to step over the bodies? And I mean homeless people, children. Are you ready to deal with the phone calls from your female relatives and their children, your favorite nephew, your favorite niece? They're going to be homeless. Are you going to let them live with you? What about your child's mother? She's homeless. You going to let your children live in a homeless shelter? Are you ready to step over the bodies? And that's what I meant by that. And literally, there will be a lot of homeless people. If you don't have anything to eat, you don't have anywhere to stay, there's really nowhere else to go. At some point, people will try to find a way for themselves. They might have to get back together with some family members they fell out with. But when that falls out and doesn't work, what do? They're eventually going to give you a call because people follow the resources. But after I asked you the questions, are you ready to step over the bodies, I also noted that most of you black men are far too compassionate to let the people that you care about, irrespective of their transgressions against you, you're too caring and loving to let these people suffer. And I can see you opening up your homes and your apartments and utilizing your resources to try to save them, from the consequences of their poor decisions. And I trust that will happen. Of course, there are some men who are they're here for the chaos, and I pray that the Most High give them wisdom and guidance. But I would think that there is a strong percentage of black men who are willing to provide some sort of aid and comfort to people who've made poor decisions, because it may be your mother, it may be your sister, it may be an ex. And at the end of the day, those women are the women that came from the same wombs that you came from. They're the women that gave birth to you. And it serves you no purpose as a man to watch them suffer, at least not in the eyes of the world. The world is going to be looking at you and see how you handle this. Are you going to handle this situation with grace and dignity? Or are you going to be as petty as the black women who you're angry with? Because let's not forget, the minute the federal government and these state governments gave black women a few dollars in the form of Section 8 and welfare and EBT, they literally turned their back on black men and said, hey, I don't need a man. The minute you got a government subsidy and a scholarship set aside so that you can go to one of these Ivy League colleges, you said, I don't need a man anymore, he's beneath me. That's what you said, ladies. And you might as well deal with that. This is why black men are angry. Because when you were able, when the government made you able to, quote unquote, take care of yourself, not only did you gloat about it, but you then said, you don't need a man. There's only one group of women on this planet known for the statement, I'm strong, independent, and don't need a man. It's not women in Tibet. It's not women in Sri Lanka. No. It's black American women. And so, but I ask you brothers to be bigger than that. I ask you not to be as petty as they were. Show your grace, show your humanity. Show the rest of the world why the Most High God decided you to make the first human being ever created on the planet, a black man, according to my Holy Bible. And that being the case, I thank you all. I hope you all understand that, I said all this from a place of love and understanding. We can't continue to live in chaos, fellas. As much as you want to see destruction, it does not benefit you for chaos to happen. And it does not benefit anybody in society for there to be homeless and homeless women and homeless children. What does that say about America if we have rampant homelessness of women and children? It says that we're a poorly run nation. And what does that say about the black nation when we have a bunch of homeless women and children running around? It says horrible things about us as men and as the adults in general, not just the women who made the decision to put themselves in a position where they could have the rug snatched out from under them by a hostile federal government. Nevertheless, as I always say at this time, think about what I said, and other than that, I'm out. What's up? Welcome to the broadcast. This is Uncle D.
People wash their ass in the tub, Kamala Harris.
You were tune in to Uncle D. D's black man talk, pull up homie, take a seat. Don't be a shadow watcher every day. Hey, you learn something and you earn something. And let them know and drop some money in the plate. It's getting cold, ladies talking ratchet. There's a king here, grab your coat, zip your jacket. Keep quiet for a second, close your jaw. Attorney Spurling, this ain't pearly, know the law. Talking Constitution, pushing pins when he shooting, give him that. Masculinity, just for the record, sprinkle that. You can keep your cat, gotta cut it. Only cat he rubbing, gotta love it. I call it Molly Buddy. Gotta vote your interest, vote and earns. Presidential, this is for the money that I earn. When you gon' learn, my people, that evil mixed with evil. No matter what you're doing, baby, this ain't equal. Sometimes when you're special, you get hated. The test is for the best, you're damn right, my people made it. Uncle D, Blizzard King, you been served, gotta know this now. Black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you been served, get your notice now. Black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you been served, get your notice now. Black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you been served, get your notice now. Black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now.
Hey man, I'll do what I do.
Somebody need to whip your ass.
Get up and whip him, Sweets.
Hey, don't be putting the money in my hand all rough.
Take your ass out here. You buy you a Flowbee and cut your own damn hair from now on.